Hey, what is going on everybody? It is Rob, aka The Diligent Dev, and in this video tutorial, we're going to be looking at how we can take an address, geocode it, and display it on a Google map. Now, in order to do this, we're going to be using the Google Maps API, Google Geocoding API. We're also going to be using Firebase. We'll be using the Firestore and Firebase functions. And then for our front end, we're going to be using VueJs with a form to submit addresses, and then below the form, a Google map to display the different map pins for the addresses that we've geocoded. Now, it sounds like a lot, but if you stick with me, I'm going to walk you through step by step, and we're going to get through this process together. So let's jump over to the computer and get right into it. Okay, so here we are over at the computer, and I just want to show you a little demo of what we're going to be building before we get into it, because this video is 40 minutes long, and I want you to know exactly what we're going to be building in this tutorial. So as you can see here, we have a form to save addresses, and then we have our Google Maps with different pins. This pin is Google's headquarters, and this one is the White House. So if we zoom in on it a little bit, you can see that it is the White House. If we reload the page, you see that our map pins are persisted. Now what I want to do is go ahead and save an address to kind of show you what that looks like, and we'll do Amazon's headquarters. So based on a Google search, this is Amazon's headquarters. They're based out of Seattle, Washington. And it's, let me go copy and paste the zip code, and we'll hit save. And you'll see we have a new map pin and the form has cleared out. Now, if we try to submit this, you'll see we have a little bit of form validation that you must provide a full address. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the coding section. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is head over to console.developers.google.com and go ahead and create an account if you don't already have one. Once you have your account created, you can create a new project or use an existing one. If you want to create a new project, you'll see we have a drop down up here, and if I click it, I see all the projects that I have, and then I can go ahead and create a new one. Once you've selected the project that you want to use, we'll head up here to the search for APIs and services search bar, and we'll just type in geocoding. And we'll see the geocoding API. You just want to click on that. And then you're going to see something a little bit different because I already have this enabled, but you'll see a button to enable it. After that's enabled, you'll have to go to the Maps JavaScript API. And you'll see it right here. And it's the same deal here. You'll have to enable it. And the next thing we need to do is get credentials. So we're going to go up here. We're going to go to APIs and services and go to credentials. Now see that I already have an API key, but if you need to create a new API key, you'll just click on create credentials, create an API key, and it'll go ahead and generate one for you, and copy that and paste it somewhere because we're going to be using that later. Now that we have our APIs enabled and credentials for the APIs, we need to enable billing. So we're going to go up here and we're going to go to billing. And you'll see that I already have billing set up, but you'll need to enter in a credit card here. And don't worry about the cost. You get a $200 a month credit with Google Maps and the geocoding API, which averages about 40,000 geocoding requests before you'd actually start accruing anything. And that's on a monthly basis, so you get the $200 credit every month. But if you're really worried about it, you can go to budgets and alerts. And you can go ahead and set up an alert. You'll see that I have $1 here, and it's triggered at 50, 90, and 100%. So 50 cents, 90 cents, and 100%. And all you'd have to do is go to your APIs and disable them, or just go ahead and delete those API key credentials that we created earlier. And now that that's all set up, we can head over to Firebase. Go ahead and create an account if you don't already have one, and then click on this little go to console. Then we're going to click add a project, and we'll call this geocoding with Google. I'll hit continue. We're going to go ahead and disable Google Analytics for this project. And once this is done provisioning, I will be right back. Okay, so now that our Firebase project has been provisioned, all we need to do here is go into the main dashboard of our project, click on database. We're going to click Create Database up here to create a Cloud Firestore. We're going to start it in test mode. Now, I would highly recommend if you're going to push out a production version of your application that you lock this down. This is going to allow anybody to read and write to it, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm not going to go into Firestore rules. So we're just going to click Test Mode and hit Next. We'll just choose the default US Central Server. And then it's going to go ahead and provision our Cloud Firestore. And once that's done provisioning it, I will be right back. Okay, now that the Firestore has been provisioned, what we need to do now is install the Firebase CLI. So I'm going to open up a new terminal, and I'm going to run the following command. Now I'm on a Mac, so I have to put sudo in front of this, but if you're on a Windows machine, you don't have to put sudo. I'm going to run npm i-g for global firebase-tools. It's going to prompt me to enter my password. On a Windows machine, it will not do this. And then it's going to go ahead and install the Firebase CLI. And once it's done installing, I will be right back. Now that the Firebase CLI has been installed, we need to sync it with our Firebase account. So I'm going to run the following command: Firebase login. And it's showing that I'm already logged in, but for you, it will open a new browser window and prompt you to log into your Firebase account. Now, the next thing we need to do is create our Vue project. So I'm going to cd into my desktop directory. I'm going to run the following command: npx @vue/CLI create Google address geocoding, and hit enter. Okay, so I sped up the video here, so for you it's going to take a lot longer, but we're just going to choose the default of Vue 2 for now. I know Vue 3 is out, but it's not out of beta yet, so we're just going to choose the Vue 2 Babel ESLint default. And once this is done installing, I will be right back. And now that our Vue project is all set up, I've opened it in Visual Studio Code. I would highly recommend that if you want to follow along with this video that you use Visual Studio Code, but you can use your favorite code editor. And what I'm going to do is open up a new terminal, and I'm going to run the following command: Firebase init. It's going to ask us which features we want to use, and all we're going to check is functions. So hit space on that and then enter. We're going to use an existing project, and then just go ahead and pick the project that you set up earlier. It's going to ask us what type of language we want to use. We're going to use JavaScript. We're going to say yes to enforce ESLint to catch bugs and errors. It's going to ask us if we want to install dependencies. I'm going to hit yes. And once this is all finished up, I will be right back. So now it's finished up, we can take a look at the project, and we see we have this new functions folder, and this is where our Firebase functions are going to live. And in particular, in this index.js is where we will write our Firebase function. You see it's added a couple other files, but we're not really too concerned about those. Now what we need to do is install some dependencies that we'll be using in our Vue project. So down here in the terminal, I'm going to run the following: npm i firebase vue2-google maps, Axios, and Bootstrap Vue. And let me get rid of this so you can see what I've typed in here, and I'll hit enter. And once it's done installing these dependencies, I will be right back. Okay, now that our dependencies have been installed, let's go ahead and wire up everything for Vue.js. So the first thing we're going to need to do is head back to our Firebase console. We're going to click on Project Overview. I'm going to click on this little web icon, give it a nickname. We'll say Geocoding with Google. We're going to go ahead and register the app. And then inside of this script tag right here, we're just going to copy everything. We're going to head back to our project. We're going to go to src main.js. And up here at the top, I'm going to import Firebase from Firebase. And then we're going to go ahead and paste that config that we copied in the last step. And this will go ahead and initialize Firebase in our project for us. Then we're going to wire up Bootstrap Vue. So I'm going to head over to their docs, click on Getting Started, scroll down to this section right here, and you see our import here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Actually, I'm going to copy all three of these, head back to our project, paste that in, and I'm just going to move this up to the top because I like to do all my imports at the top. And you'll see that we have initialized Bootstrap Vue and the icons plugin, which we don't really need, but we'll go ahead and leave it in there. And then we'll go back to their docs, and we'll see we need to import the CSS files. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these. and I'm just going to paste them in right here. Next, we're going to wire up our Vue Google Maps plugin. So I'm going to head over to their docs, and I'll leave links to all these in the description. Let's scroll down a little bit, and it says for usage, we need to do this. So we're going to import the Google Maps, and I'll pin this over here. We're going to import it at the top here. And then we're going to copy this out of here. And we'll go right below our Firebase, initialize, and we'll go ahead and paste it in right here. And I am going to get rid of all these comments. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this because we're not going to be using the places library. And we'll get rid of all these comments here. I'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger now that we have it in here, and it looks like we're missing the V on VueJs. And you're going to want to copy in your API token right here, or API key that we did in step 1 when we set up our Google APIs. And then we'll just go ahead and save everything. We're going to open this back up, and we're going to head to app.vue. Now in here, we're going to have a form for users to input addresses, and then we're also going to have a Google map that gets displayed below that will show all the pins for the addresses that we've geolocated. But first, let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We'll get rid of everything inside this app div. We'll remove the hello world import for the component and also delete the components property. Next thing we'll do is we'll make a data prop. And we'll put saved locations for the locations that we're going to be saving inside of Firestore. And we'll do form data, and this will be an object. And we'll say streets, city, states, states, and zip. Below our data prop, we'll make a methods property. And we're going to create a method that's going to handle our form submit. So we'll say async handle form submit. And this will just be a placeholder for now. Then we can head up to our templates. I'm going to give this app div a class of container and MT5 for some margin on the top. Then inside of this div, we're going to have our B form. And this is a Bootstrap Vue component and just creates a Bootstrap form. We're going to give it a submit. We're going to bind the submit property, and we're going to do submit.prevent, so it prevents the default action. And we're going to give it our handle form submit. Next, we're going to do a B row, and inside of it, we're going to do a B call. And this is a Bootstrap row and a Bootstrap column. If you're not familiar with Bootstrap Vue, we'll give it MD. This is the amount of columns for the medium break. And inside of this, we'll do a B form group. We're going to give it a label of street. And inside of here, we'll do a B form input. And we're going to give it a V model equal to street. Below this B row, I'm going to do another B row, and inside of it, we're going to have a B call, and we're actually going to have 3 of them, so we'll multiply that by 3. Then I'm going to do Command Alt, or you could do Control Alt on a Windows computer. It's going to give me the ability to make changes on multiple rows, and I'm just going to say MD equals 3 because we want this to have 3 columns on a medium breakpoint. Next, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to copy this form group. I'm going to come back down to this column and just go ahead and paste it in. We're going to change the label to city, and we'll change the V model to city. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in again, and we're going to do states, and we'll make the V model state and paste it in one more time. And we'll do, you guessed it, zip, and V model will be zip. Underneath our B row down here, we're going to do a B button. We're going to give it a type equal to submit and a variance equal to primary. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and save everything. And I'm going to come down to the terminal and run npm run serve. And this is going to launch a development server. And once it's up and running, I will be right back. Okay, so the development server's up and running, but there's some funky things going on with the label and we don't have a button here. So what I'm going to do is come down here and it looks like I mistyped. So make that be button and make the closing tag be button as well. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you'll see now we have our button, but we have no text for it. So we're just going to say save address, hit save. And you'll see that everything is pushed to the middle of the screen, and that's because in our app.view, we need to delete all the styles in here. So just go ahead and delete these and save. And now everything is looking like it should. So let's go ahead and start coding out the Google map. So in order to do that, we're going to head back to the View to Google Maps documentation, and I'm just going to copy this out of here. We're going to head back, and right underneath of our form, I'm going to go ahead and just paste that in. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format it, and we're going to change some things in here. What I want to do is center this in the United States, so I'm going to make the latitude 39 and the longitude -95. I'm going to change the zoom to 4. We're going to change the map type ID to roadmap. I'm going to give it a width of 100%. A height of, let's just say 300 pixels, that's good, and a margin top of 60 pixels. Now we don't have any map markers right now, which is actually going to be our saved locations. So I'm going to replace markers with saved locations and we will come back to this, but for now I'm just going to wrap this in a div. We'll do a vif on it and we'll say if saved locations dot length is greater than 0. And I'm going to take this map marker and put it in there, hit Alt-Shift-F to format it, and then go ahead and save it. And you'll see right now we have a map of the United States. Let's go ahead and make the height 400 and see how that looks. And we have a map of the United States centered. So now that we have this all set up, we can start to focus on our Firebase function. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller now. And so we can enlarge this and get a better look at our code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to our functions folder that was created for us by the Firebase init function. And I'm going to head to the index.js. Now inside of here, we can see that we have, you know what, I'm just going to minimize this because we're not going to need it for a while. In here, we can see we have an example function that shows us kind of what we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this. And you'll see that this will export a function called hello world. It's an HTTP request function. So when an HTTP call is made to this endpoint that Firebase will set up for us, it fires a logger and it also fires a response that says hello from Firebase, which will be returned to the client. For now, we're just going to clean it up. We're going to call this geocode address and save. And we'll get rid of the logger here. And we'll also get rid of this return. Before we write any code, we're going to have to import some packages. So I'm going to open up a new terminal and I'm going to cd into the functions folder. And I'm going to run the following command, npm I course Axios. And once this is done installing, I will be right back. So now that our packages have installed successfully, let's go ahead and start coding this out. Up here at the top, we're going to import the Firebase admin. So we'll say const admin equals require Firebase admin. Under that, we're going to say admin.initialize app. Then we're going to say const Firestore equals admin.firestore. And then we're going to say const db equals Firestore. And we're going to initialize it. So essentially, what we're doing is we're initializing our admin, then we're getting an instance of the Firestore, and then we're getting an instance of our database. Underneath this, we're going to say const Axios equals require Axios, because we're going to need it to make an HTTP request. And then we're going to say const course equals require cores. And then we're also going to set some options off of it. And we're going to say origin true. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format everything. And the last thing we're going to initialize up here is our Google Maps API key. So we'll say const Google Maps API key. And you're just going to set that equal to your API key. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and look at the Google Maps Geocoding API documentation. So in here, we have the getting started. And if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see that there is a sample request and response, and we have a geocoding request right here, and you'll see that it's a URL. So we're going to make a call to this using Axios, and there's two important pieces that get passed in here. The first is the address, which we're going to pass in through the body of the request that we'll be making to our Firebase functions. And then we have our API key, which is going to be hard-coded. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and look at the response that you will get, but this is the sample response that will be sent back from the Geocoding API. Okay, so back here at our Firebase function, the first thing we want to do is wrap everything in a try-catch. So down here in the catch block, what we'll do is we will use the functions library to log an error. So we'll say functions.logger.error. And all we'll do is log the error.message in there. And then we will return a response with a status of 500. Now up here in the try block, the first thing we're going to want to get is the address that we're passing in. So we're going to say const address equals request.body.address. The next thing we're going to do is make our call to the Google Geocoding API. So we're going to say const, I'm going to do some object destructuring here, data equals axios.get. And then I'm going to come back to the Geocoding API docs. I'm going to come up here and copy this. Come back. I'm going to put this in backticks because we're going to do some text interpolation. And what I'm going to do is find the address. And we're going to put a $sign and 2 curly braces and put address there. And then we're going to grab the your API key. Same thing, put $sign with 2 curly braces and say Google Maps API key. Now we're going to have to await this Axios call. So I'm going to say await. And then in order to use await, it has to be an async function. So we're going to put async right there. And I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format everything. And the next thing we need to do is make sure we got valid results back. So if we didn't get any results, we're going to say if data.status does not equal okay, then this means that we didn't get any results back. And what we're going to do in the event that happens is we're going to return cores. We pass in our request and our response to cores. We're going to say response.status will be a 200. And we're going to send back a message with no results. And the reason that we're wrapping this in cores is because you will get something called a cores error if you haven't set up your API to let it know which URL should be able to access it. And if we've made it past this if block, that means we have a valid location. So we're going to say const geocoded location equals data.results. And we're going to grab the first result out of there. Then we're going to create a record for our Firestore. So we're going to say const obj geocoded location equals an object. We're going to say address and set that equal to geocoded location dot formatted underscore address. And then we're going to say geopoints, and we're going to set that equal to a new admin.firestore.geopoints. And we're going to say geocoded location.geometry.location.lat. And the second part is going to be basically the same thing as this, except the longitude. So we'll go ahead and just copy that and paste that right there and put LNG for longitude. And these are properties that are coming back from the Geocode API. So you'll see right here, if we go, there's the formatted address, and then we have geometry, location, and then lat long. And then the next thing we're going to do is save our location in the database. So we're going to say awaits db.collection. We're going to call our collection locations .add, and we're just going to add that obj geocoded location. And then we'll say response dot status. We'll send back a 200, and then we're also going to send our obj geocoded location with it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then in order to deploy this function, we're going to run the following command: Firebase deploy -- only functions. And you'll see I have an error here, and it's saying cloud function deployment requires pay-as-you-go billing. So what we have to do is head back to our Firebase console. So I've opened the Firebase console. I have the Geocoding with Google project all set up. I'm going to click this upgrade down here, and I'm going to go to the pay-as-you-go plan and select that and purchase it, which won't actually charge my card anything, and you get 2 million function requests for free per month. So I wouldn't worry about ever going over it unless you have some wildly successful app. And it's saying right here, if you want to avoid unexpected bills, then you can configure a budget alert. So you could go in here and set a budget alert of like $1 and set it. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And then I'm going to run back here and run the exact same command. Okay, so the function has deployed successfully, and what I'm going to do is do a little bit of testing on it before I actually wire up the front end. So I have a program called Postman, and it's what I use to test my API. So what I'm going to do, and I'll leave a link to this in the description, is open up a new tab. We are going to head back over to the Firebase project, or the Firebase console, and we're going to click on functions. And we see we have our function here, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab this URL. I'm going to come back and paste that in. I'm going to make this a post request because we're going to be passing the address in the body. So we're going to click on body here, raw. I'm going to make it JSON, and we're going to pass address. And then I'm just going to pull up the White House's address and copy that. And we're going to paste that in there. It looks like it did a line break on me. All right, so we're all set up. We'll just hit send, and we get our response back. We have the formatted address, and then we have the geo point that was geocoded by the Google Geocode API. Now, if we go back to our Firebase console, and now we look at the database, we should have a record in there in a locations collection, and we do. And now let's wire up the front end to display the map pins and also use that form to submit addresses into our collection. So back at the project, when the page loads, what we want to happen is we want the map pins to populate on our map of the United States. So in order to do that, let's head back to our main.js file, and right underneath our Firebase config, we're going to write this: const Firestore equals Firebase.Firestore, and then we're going to say export const db equal to Firestore. So we'll initialize our database and we'll export it out of our main.js. Now let's head to our app.vue, and right above our methods property, we're going to tap into a view lifecycle hook called before mount. And inside of this is where we will go ahead and grab all those map pins. So actually, before we do that, up here at the top, we're going to import db from main.js. And then in before mount, we need to make this an async function because we're going to be awaiting our db call, and we'll say const snap equals await db.collection. We're going to reference the locations collection, and we're just going to say get to return all the records from the location collection. Then below that, we're going to say snap.docs.forEach, and we'll pass in a document. And then what we're going to do is say this.savedLocations.push, and we're just going to push in the doc.data. And now that we have our saved locations, we just need to alter our map marker here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of all three of these. And then for position, we need to pass in an object. And we'll say lat, and we'll set that equal to m.geopoint dot latitude. And we'll set the longitude equal to m.geopoint dot longitude. And we're just going to go ahead and save this. And we see now we get our map marker for the White House displaying on the screen. So the next thing we need to do is wire up our save address form. So let's head back to app.view. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. At the top here, we're going to import Axios from Axios. And then we have our handle form submit already set up. So we're going to do a little bit of form validation before we pass it to the back end. And we'll say if this, or exclamation point, this dot form data dot streets. So if we don't have a streets, or we don't have, I'll just go ahead and copy this. If we don't have a state or a city, or a state, or a zip code. So if that is the case, I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format this. Then what we want to do is we want to alert. You must provide full address. And then we'll just return. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and make the request. So we'll say let, or we'll do const address equals, I'll do a backtick because we're going to do some text interpolation here. We'll do a $sign and 2 curly braces. I'm going to go ahead and paste the street in there and then put a comma. We're going to do another $sign and curly braces. I'm going to paste in there. We're going to say city. Do another comma. States. And zip code. And I'm actually going to make this bigger so we can see more of what's going on here. Now, once we have the address, we can make our request. So we're going to say, let's do some object destructuring for the Axios response. Data equal await. If I can type Axios dot post. Now we need to go back and grab the URL. So I think I still have it in Postman. And this is the URL that we're going to need. And I need to wrap that in quotes. And then we also need to do a comma, and we're going to pass in our address. And below that, we will say if data is equal to no results, we will alert no result found for address. And then we'll just go ahead and return. So if we've gotten here, that means we have a valid result, but we're going to need to massage the data a little bit because what we're returning from the API does not exactly match our schema of what is being returned from our Firestore. So I'm just going to say const obj equals address. And we'll create an object here and we'll set it to data.address. We will set a geopoint object, and we're going to set that to latitude equal to data.geopoints _, latitude, and set longitude equal to data.geopoints _ longitude. And for some reason it's putting these underscores in there, and that's why we're having to sort of massage this data in here. And the next thing we'll do is we will push this object into our saved location, so that way when we import one, we get a valid result, it automatically displays on the form. So we're gonna say this.savedlocations.push, and we're just gonna push this object that we created into that. And the last thing we're gonna do is just clear all the form data. So I'm just gonna say this.formData.streets equals a blank string, and I'll just copy that and paste this in here 3 more times. And we'll say city, state, and zip. And everything is looking good. I'm just gonna go ahead and save it. And then let's head back. So I'll pin this to the side of the screen. And let's go ahead and put in an address. And I'm just gonna make one up. We'll say 100 Main Street, New York. New York. 10, I think it's 111 maybe. Go ahead and save the address. It looks like we may have gotten an error here, so I'm just gonna inspect. I'm gonna go ahead and pin this over here, and I'm gonna hit save. And it looks like we're getting a CORS error, so let me figure out exactly why that's occurring, and I'll be right back. All right, so exactly what was occurring is you see how I'm using CORS here, but I'm not using it here or here. And this is actually a good thing that this happened, because this is something that I run into a lot. When you're working with APIs, you're gonna get CORS errors. So what I forgot to do was to wrap our response here and also this 500 response in CORS. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and grab this. I'm gonna come down here to this response, and I'm just gonna wrap this in that. And we'll come down here to this 500, and we'll also wrap that. So when we get 500, to return to the API without a CORS error, or return to the front end without a CORS error. And we can actually get rid of this response send. I'm not too sure why that's there. I'm gonna hit Alt-Shift-F to format everything. I'm going to save it, and then now we need to redeploy our Firebase function. So I'll head over here. We'll run that Firebase deploy -- only functions. And when that's all finished up, I will be right back. Okay, so the Firebase function has deployed successfully, but I found a couple other errors. Down here, I forgot the G in longitude, and up here we are not checking to see if this is a truthy or falsy value. So I need to delete these exclamation points out of the address. Let's go ahead and save all of that. Let's head back to our development server. And we already had one up. And let's go ahead and put in the White House address again, because I deleted it out of my collection. Let's go here, copy that, and put it in for streets, city, states, 20500. Gonna hit save address and cross our fingers. All right, I set a breakpoint in here, so it looks like we have a good address here, a good latitude and longitude, so we'll just run it. And awesome, we see we get our map pin. So let me take this off, and let's put in another address just to, do a little demo of what we've done here. And what I'm gonna Google is Google's headquarters. I'm going to paste this over here, or print this over here. And I believe there's a good address right here. So let's do this 1600 Amphitheater Parkway. And let me go in here a little bit more. And we'll come down here, and we see we have Mountain View, CA 94043. And we're gonna save that address. And awesome. So let's head back to our Firestore and go look at our data we have in here, and we see we have our Google headquarters, and we also have the White House's address. And they are both showing up on the map, and if I reload the page, we see that they continue to show up on the map on page load. So that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this tutorial. Now, if you got any value out of this, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out my channel and encourages me to make more videos just like this. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. And until next time, happy coding.